Welcome back to touring my Minecraft world titled Awesome World. Welcome to episode 3. I'm glad you stuck around. In this episode, we're going to be touring a little bit more of districts that don't really have a name and are buildings that are more just on the random side. Most of them have something to do with public appeal or doing something for fun, like leisure activities. This is going to be a longer video, as we have a lot of buildings to cover, but I think it'll set us in the right direction. So, as a little recap from last episode, we just toured the Arts District, where we looked at the art museum right in front of us, the library to our left, and then the temples behind us. We're going to go behind us first, and go behind the temples. This will give you a glimpse into something that we'll get to in a later episode. But I want to look at the fountains. Now, for the most part in my Minecraft world, in fact almost every part, once I complete a project or complete a building, I don't return to it. This goes for gardens, buildings, interior design. I like to leave them as they are. One, because I like to see the progress that I made as I build later. And two, I usually get really burnt out with a project and sick of it once I finish, and I don't want to return again. So, with all that being said, that is not true for these fountains. Prior to the two that you see before you, there used to be other ones. I don't have any pictures of them anymore, but I hated them. I hated them very much, so I decided one day to just bite the bullet and to completely redesign them, and so I did. And so I really played on this idea of like water coming out of buildings, of, different symmetries, and I created some elegant fountains that I'm happy with for the most part now. I also have these arches to kind of show you gardens and hint into what's to come, but don't peek. So we're going to go behind the relaxing garden. And we're actually not going to go across the bridge, and instead we're going to make a right and look at more of these beautiful gardens. In the background, we're listening to Graceland 2 by Phoebe Bridgers. So, now we can see the buildings that we're going to get a tour of today. We're going to keep going straight. The first building that we're going to do is this skyscraper here. Once again, it's a completely symmetrical building, and I wanted to do my own take on a skyscraper. I also wanted to experiment in how I get into buildings. So if you notice, nowhere around it is there a path that leads up to it. It's because the entrance is actually that little white roof there. But before we go in, let me tell you a little bit about this building. I built this building relatively early into the Minecraft world. It's the oldest building in the section of buildings I'm going to show you. And I wanted this to be a zoo. So I wanted this building to be very modern and sleek, but also to hold animals. You'll notice on the inside that there are going to be no animals inside, as the size that I built it turned out to be a little too small to hold any animals. But you can still get the same idea. So now that you know it's a little bit of a zoo, or a little bit about it, I want you to think about as we enter. So you can't see this from the ground, you can only see it from the air. But right in between, right where the big white roof is, on either side of it are two gardens that are completely identical. For the most part. One is actually a slightly larger version. So the right side is a little bit longer by 2 blocks than on the left side. But that's just how things work. But the thing that I really want to draw your attention to are the eyes in the middle. So once again, if you remember from our last episode, this idea of eyes really came into power and came into play as I grew on this motif. So what is a zoo? It's something where we go to view animals. We watch them from a cage. So I want you to feel that while you're in this zoo, maybe you're also being looked at by the animals. Maybe you're being judged and viewed. And I want you to feel that as you enter it. So that way you're constantly aware and cognizant of the action that you're doing. Now let's go inside. The zoo was built in 2021 in August 15th. So as you can see now in this time frame, I'm actually dating things besides just giving a year, because I realized I was building so many things in a year that it would be hard to remember which I built first and which ones I didn't. Now you're met with this tunnel. It's playing into this brand new, at the time, amethyst block and raw gold block. And it feels sleek and it feels modern. Now I'm not going to give you a full tour into this, this whole building. And instead I'm just going to show you the main chamber. Because, like I said, there's no animals in it, but it's still nice to see. So here's one of the chambers. It's the winter chamber. So each of the different towers represents a different biome. So you have winter, then you have grasslands, you have the ocean, and then one of them is a savanna. You'll also see that I'm using chains to hold up the sea lanterns. There's also a balcony in the middle with tulips that are being held up from this other balcony up here. And at the top you'll see more tulips. And then in the middle here, you'll notice this lovely arch almost. It's a shallow arch, but it's still an arch, with 4 different waterfalls falling down, signifying the different quadrants. Let's go into the main chamber here. This is the middle one. In here, it's a rainforest, but it's more than just a rainforest. This tree here in the middle I want to signify as the tree of life. It's the center of everything, and really what this whole tower revolves around. Then, on 3 of the corners, you have bamboo, which will continue to grow to the very top of the tower. And then finally you have the waterfalls coming down, which ties in and feeds this tree and gives its nutrients to grow strong, which is each different biome connecting the earth into one. That's going to be it for this building, as like I said, there's not much to it. One thing I did make a mistake with, but I was still learning when building this and designing this building, is the tunnel system. So like I said, I wanted to change the idea of how I enter and play with hallways and rooms. And I really like how this tunnel system worked. But the issue is I did not do it in a smart manner. And so it's very confusing to find your way about, and I often get lost. But I did not get lost this time. Let's leave the zoo now. So as we leave, we're going to enter the gardens. I want to stop at this garden for a second and compare it with the other gardens. So most of my other gardens were contained and were a very simple pattern, and they were finite. This was the first garden where I experimented with a different idea of an infinite garden. So it's the same repeating pattern, but there's no exact end or start, and theoretically I could just continue to build this garden forever. And I really like how it looks, and I really like how it turned out, and you'll see this idea of an infinite garden continuing throughout. You'll also notice, and if you want to compare this from episode 1 in the Old Palace grounds, and even with the episode previous, you'll notice that now all of the redstone lamps are hidden. All of them are now hidden under bushes or trapdoors, as I really started to change my mind, and I didn't do it cognizantly. I didn't realize I was doing it at the time, but I did not like how the redstone lamps looked on the outside and being seen. I thought it really distracted the viewer, so I decided to start hiding it. Now we're going to go back down to the ground and go to our next building. Here's a mini build, which is a little Arc de Triomphe, almost, It's a Roman archway, which I wanted to signify to the building that you're about to see next, which is my Hippodrome. I know, that's a big word. The Hippodrome is this building here. A hippodrome is an ancient, well not ancient, but is from ancient Rome, and the Romans loved building these. The most significant one is in Petra, Jordan. It no longer stands complete, but you can see its ruins. And it was known for being an oval with a flat end, so we're currently looking at the flat end. In ancient Roman times, it was used for chariot racing and other horse-style racings. That doesn't exactly happen in my world, but it's nice to imagine. Now before we go in, let's look at the time period that we're looking at, which is March 20th of 2022. Now this arch was actually built before the Hippodrome, but that's okay. You'll notice the outside of the Hippodrome here, with these lovely archways with glass that's alternating for doors. I wanted there to be a lot of entrances into this building, as I wanted you to imagine large crowds coming to this stadium. You'll also notice that there are actual doors in this, so I started using a lot more doors in my build, with the library being the first ever building to have a door on the outside. And then this is my second building having doors. Let's enter. So when you enter, you'll notice that you're met with this one wall with this repeating pattern. And I wanted this pattern to feel more modern while conflicting with this ancient style building. I think the thing that you'll notice most easily are the eyes, with the golden pupil in the eye. And once again, I really want you to think as to what a stadium is. And it ties back into that zoo of you watching people. So I want the viewer to be a little uncomfortable and feel like they're being watched as well. The Hippodrome has 2 floors, so of course you have the stairs to get up to the 2nd floor. You have these simple chain lamps, once again using those blue trapdoors, and you have a floor that has some divots in it to keep a design going. You'll round the corner here, and you really start to feel the shape of the Hippodrome form. And that leads us to the grand entrance here, with the grand staircase. Let's enter the Hippodrome Stadium. You'll notice these are tunnels, similar to like you see in the Colosseum in Rome. And you're met with the Hippodrome. Isn't that just breathtaking? You'll notice once again, if I stand right here, it's completely symmetrical, as were hippodromes back in the time, but I took it a step further to have the towers here and here be symmetrical, as well as the buildings over there. So you can also see the kart racing area, which once again uses sand and sandstone to break up this texture with your eye. And then you can see the seats. The seats are white, but the stairs are brown, so you can see them more easily. And then you can see where each of the different doorways leads you out.